Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Tuesday morning, July the 5th, and I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room is open if anybody would like to sit in there and hang out. And I did pop the link into there to what we're talking about this last couple of months, which is Robert Burney's web pages. From Joy to Me and You, www.joy2mbu.com. And Robert Burney, he's got some great stuff there. I mean, he's a codependence therapist. He's a grief counselor. He's an author. He's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls, and he's a spiritual teacher. So he's written some really great stuff, and lots and lots of it there. So if you go to his website, you take a look at the site index. That'll bring up all of his web pages and information about where he's got his stuff and all the stuff that's actually on his website, Joy to Me and You. So we've been on this for a couple months and really taking a look at the codependence portion of it, also the inner child work, and that's what's mainly interesting me from his website. So that's what we're looking at, and so I thank everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you all listening to the shows and being here with me, and being part of this journey, this healing journey of mine. You know, you have to listen at your own discretion. I'm talking about abuse. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows on Blog Talk Radio, and I'm talking about abuse, and I don't sugarcoat it. I don't make it, minimize it. I don't make it better, than it was, or excuse it away or anything like that. I'm just talking about abuse, and I'm just tell it like it is. So, it could trigger people, and you have to know what's good for you to listen to. If you're a survivor of abuse, you have to know how far along you are in your healing journey, so that you can make sure that you're not triggered by any type of information like this. So if you listen to my show, you listen at your own discretion and make sure that abuse topics are okay for you to listen to. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my show from an adult. Hopefully you have somebody in your life who cares about what you're doing online and will help you make a decision whether you should be listening, because age appropriately. My shows are all about stopping child abuse and about child abuse, but there's a lot of adult content on my shows. And so young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have someone, find someone, even a coach or a teacher or somebody, if you don't have a parent who cares, because I know how that goes. Find somebody who's older who can help you make a decision whether you should be listening. So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. We'll get right into this. And we're looking at recovery from codependency. And we're about halfway through the page, not quite halfway, but it's called Recovery from Codependency, Inner Child Healing by Robert Burney. And just looking back, we've already kind of covered some of this, weeks ago and also yesterday. But I want to kind of go and finish this portion of it, which is the inner child work, we just finished positive affirmations, which were part of that. And then also the next portion of this is the grief work. And so I'm sort of just working through his website, just as if, just on my healing journey. That's exactly what I'm doing. So, this is kind of where we left off, which was about halfway through the page here from that link that's in the chat room. And that's www.joy2mbu.com/recovery_codependency HTM. And he was talking about the whole issue of codependency and these behaviors and this dysfunctional, way that we handle things and handle our own lives. He's like yesterday we were reading it where he wrote, life is a process, a journey. By being willing to do the inner child healing, we can learn to be present for the journey and have the capacity to actually relax and enjoy it at times. And he says, one of the very valuable things that I have learned in my recovery is echoed in something that I often say to people when I first start to work with them. Most of my counseling work is done by phone these days. And often I will end this first session by saying everything that happens in your life from now on is part of this process. So he says, we are here to do this healing. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are in a body at this very special time in history to do this healing work. And so he goes on to say, we were looking at this yesterday, he says, by being willing to get more conscious, we can start to reprogram our ego programming by using positive affirmations and self-talk, by developing a spiritual belief system that allows us to start being compassionate and loving to ourselves. And by becoming willing to face the terror of healing the emotional wounds, we can learn to release the damned, repressed grief energy within us so that it is no longer defining us and dictating our experience of life. And I mean, this is exactly where it's at. I mean, I totally relate to this on every level. He's saying by becoming willing to face the terror of healing the emotional wounds, we can learn to release the damned, repressed grief energy within us so that it is no longer defining us and dictating our experience of life. Because that's exactly where I was at, like 4 years ago when I began my healing journey. Just prior to that, I was sitting around thinking, do I have to feel this way for the rest of my life? Can I not allow myself to feel differently? Like do I have to be so wounded and so damaged forever? These were questions I was asking myself, sitting on the couch, like, especially shortly after I wanted to self-injure, and the last episode that I had where I had a meltdown and wanted to take my life and commit suicide again. And this was prior, this is about 4 years ago, right? April of 2007. And, these are the questions that were popping into my mind. I was like, why do I have to be in such pain? Just very simple questions, that, to get the answers, I was going to have to really be honest with myself. And because for so long I had been feeling like a victim, because I was under the weight of this oppression, under the weight of, still under my parents' thumb, at the age of 41. They're nowhere in sight, you know what I mean? My dad was 2,500 miles away. My mom was 16 or 14 at the time. My mother was, about 12 years in the grave. And, I'm sitting there thinking, do I have to be in this pain? Like, do I have to suffer this life? Do I have to continue to suffer? It's almost like a martyrdom thing. I was like, why do I have to continue to suffer? Why am I holding on to this anger and this rage and this pain and wanting to self-injure and wanting to end my life, knowing how horrible that is with two of my brothers killing themselves. And I really questioned myself, and I thought, that was where the process started happening, was because I started asking questions to myself and realizing that, wow, if I'm going to be honest, and really honest, I'm going to have to look for these answers, and I'm going to have to realize that obviously no one should have to live their life like that. No, I know enough to know that this human experience that we're experiencing, if we didn't know what love is, and we didn't know what light and truth and goodness is, and peace is, then it would make sense that we were just a bunch of beings on this planet having a spiritual journey of nothing but negative stuff. But seeing and actually, having love shown to me, not by my parents, by other people, and watching some of this stuff around the world that, I could see there was some really beautiful people on the earth, beautiful spirits having a human experience, that they could be full of joy and that life could be good. And I'm thinking, well, there's no reason why I can't get a hold of that, just because my parents didn't set that up for me, but there's no reason why I'm allowing that to destroy me, Like, it's my decision. I started to realize that really, ultimately, it was going to have to be me to allow myself to heal and to get help, and that was before I actually had started to do any healing work, and I really hadn't started looking around at information up to that point, for adult survivors of child abuse, right? And so I started really seeking that information, and it started to verify what I was thinking was actually very true, that I don't have to, to be that victim anymore. I'm not that child anymore, even though she lives within me, that part of myself that was, abused and so screwed up, like that, and all the different parts from the different age periods of where the most serious damage was done to my psyche mainly. To my body. Well, that's a fleshly experience of that, but to my psyche, which my very inner core spirit soul, my mind, I thought all these different parts of that still live within me. But I thought, here I am at the age of 41, and I'm going to allow my past to destroy me? I'm like, what is going on? It started to really not make sense to me. I was like, why am I sitting around in this victim role? Like, why am I allowing my parents to still continue to abuse me so many years later, and they're nowhere to even be found? They're like nowhere near me. I totally escaped them at the age of, 29 years old. I finally got away. And I'm like, wow, I had 11 years away from my mother anyway. And I hadn't really made very much progress, And so that's when my healing journey began 4 years ago. And I really started to ask myself these questions. Do I have to, this, like he says here, like Robert Birdie says, we're going to have to become willing to face the terror of healing the emotional wounds. We can learn to release the damned, repressed grief energy within us so that it no longer defines us and dictates our experiences of life. So, I think that's awesome, because that's exactly what happened to me. Is I started to allow myself to work through this stuff. I started to allow myself to see what happened to me as a child, and to hold myself and say, you did not deserve that. I did not deserve that. Oh my God. And allow myself to experience the grief of it, and to hold myself and to literally hug myself. Like I didn't have anybody around to do that for me, and I didn't seek anybody. It's not like I went out and sought a friend to help me through it, or I didn't go out and seek a counselor or a therapist or anything like that. I was doing this all on my own. And I'm very spiritual, so I believe God was with me and the Holy Spirit. So there you go. But I didn't feel like I necessarily was alone, but I needed to be able to do this for myself, because I realized that little person inside of me, all the different stages of this little person within me that was wounded so long ago, was never ever going to be able to get what she needed from my parents. It wasn't going to happen. And I realized as soon as I started doing some healing work and actually reading and taking a look at what was out there, that I was going to have to learn how to do that for myself. And so I started to learn how to reach myself from so long ago and hug myself and say, my God, you didn't deserve that. It's a horrid situation what children go through. And, never should happen, right? But it did. And so I can't change that. But what I can change is how I feel about myself and how, how I feel about life and how I feel about what happened to me. You know what I mean? It was a lot of work, really. It's taken me the 4 years, obviously a little bit over 4 years now, to work to get to where I'm at today. But I really like what Robert Burney says there. It doesn't have to no longer define us or dictate our life. I had lived so long like that I sort of thought, if I actually let go of this stuff, if I let go of this anger and this rage and this horrific stuff that I've been holding on to, who will I be? Will I still be me? Or will I be somebody else? Can I truly be me without carrying all of this stuff with me? And as I'm working through my healing journey, I guess that was a good question. I don't think I've lost myself. I'm actually finding myself. So that's the thing that's very interesting about this whole thing, is I thought I would lose myself if I let go of some of that rage and that anger and how I was feeling, those feelings. I thought, man, if I lose these feelings, will I actually know who I am? Because I've been feeling them since I was a child, right? Anger and just being very, very pissed off about what my parents did to me and a sibling mainly. Some other stuff in life happened to me that I almost don't even care about, because I'm like, no, the only thing that really mattered to me was that my parents, who should have loved me, did not love me. And that's where it all comes from. It stems from being a baby growing up in hell. And, then the rest of it was just a mess. And a sibling who I loved, who hurt me. So, this is the thing, like I sat around, I thought, these feelings that I was carrying around, I thought, if I lose these feelings, that I change the way I feel, is it going to change me? Will I still be me? And that question was answered for me pretty much this year, because I've done a whole lot of healing work already in the last 6 months, especially on my inner child, and I'm working through some stuff right now, which is very cool, visualizations with Gypsy, which my good friend from Australia. And, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, hey, I'm still me. But I don't have that same, those same feelings. A lot of those feelings are much more, they're a lot different than they used to be. They're just feelings, right? They're very important, and they're there for a reason, right? Somebody hurt us, right? Somebody hurt me, and I mean bad. You know what I mean? Like nobody should ever be hurt like that, especially a child, right? So that's why that question was kind of answered for me. No, I didn't lose myself at all. What I've done is actually mostly found myself and all the parts of myself that I need to learn how to love and how to care about and how to care for, that to nurture, self-nurture, and to be that person that's going to keep these parts of myself safe and free from abuse, and so that my whole inner psyche from so long ago can catch up to where I'm at right now today, to know that, hey, I'm fine. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. I'm no longer that kid on the floor, begging for mercy, blood streaming down my head, pleading with my mother to stop beating me. You know what I mean? And this was not something that happened once. I mean, this was something that was a regular occurrence in my home. That doesn't have to define me anymore. I'm no longer that kid wiping the blood off my nose, from bloody nose and getting slapped around and having to go to the bathroom and clean up my face. It doesn't define me anymore, But it was for so long. And so that's the thing. I thought, man, if I let go of these feelings, the memories will be there. I don't want to lose those. And the reason why is because I want the truth that is the truth. If I lose those, then I've lost, basically, then I will have kind of lost parts of myself that were there and was reality, right? But I can learn to heal and to allow that little person within me that was looking in the mirror trying to wipe all the blood off my face and crying the blues, I can have her understand, that she's okay, right? And that we are no longer that child on the floor being beaten and kicked around. We're no longer that child being sexually abused in my bed. We're no longer held captive and prisoner and tied up and bound to my bed, right? And so, that for me is awesome, because for so long, those little parts of me have been just struggling with what happened to them, because I really was not able to. I didn't understand how to reach them, And so it's really been so interesting. I just really had my doubts about this inner child stuff, but as I started to really think about it, I thought, oh man, it's so true, because all of the flashbacks I have, tons and tons of flashbacks from the violence and the sheer assaults, towards me and my body and my mind. All of that, I can picture myself at the time. And, what I was thinking, what I was feeling at 7 or 8 years old, what I was feeling at 9 or 10 years old, what I was feeling at 15, 16 years old, So it's been great, because I've been actually able to get in touch with myself, whereas I thought for sure it would actually cause me to not be able to get in touch with myself. So it's actually done the opposite of what I thought that would happen, which is quite interesting. It's obvious that I didn't really know a whole lot about it, but it's made a huge difference in my life to get a hold of this stuff, But I'm able to do it self-help, where so many people may not be able to. And so you have to be very careful. And even the ASCA, the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse Handbook, which is it's a workbook from it's a Morris Center program, and that's from www.ascasupport.org. That workbook, I went through this on my shows probably like a year ago. And they did talk about 35 pages are safety first, all devoted to safety first. You have to be sure that you're not going to hurt yourself, or you're not going to hurt somebody else, or you're not going to spiral downward doing self-help, right? And I knew when I started doing my self-help journey, I made a commitment to myself, because I'm very stubborn. So I thought, okay, if I make a commitment to myself and I'm serious about it, I'll stick with it. I thought, if I can't do the self-help and I actually start to lose my sense of reality, and I start to lose my sense of I guess a safety mechanism that I've built up around myself, and I can't cope, I'm going for help. I'll go see somebody, or I'll make a phone call to a crisis line, but I definitely will get myself some help, because this was my commitment to myself, was to heal. So I thought, I'm going to do the self-help, and I'm going to see if I can do it. And if I can do it, fine. And so, and I felt pretty sure. I was actually, if somebody said on a scale of 1 to 10, how sure were you that you could do the self-help? I would have said a 12. I was convinced that I could do the self-help without hurting myself or hurting anybody else, right? Because I've been facing this stuff for so long. I've been facing it. It's not like I've been in denial for 30 years and remembering stuff from 5 or 6 years old 30 years later, and it's just a shocker. I've been dealing with these memories for a long, long time, so I've been able to live with them. Sadly enough, very dysfunctionally, and very sadly, allowing them to dictate my life. But the thing is when I was going to self-injure, it wasn't because I was on my healing journey. Because after my healing journey, I no longer wanted to self-injure. So that's why it's very important for you. I would suggest, if you're going to do self-help and you're going to, listen to my shows and you're just starting out on your healing journey and you've never done any of this work before, make sure that you're in a safe enough place to do it and that you have all your bases covered. You do need to know that how you will handle things and how it will affect you when you're starting to do this work. Because so many people can't do it on their own, and they actually need to have somebody supporting them through it, whether it's a counselor or a therapist. And I mean, I haven't necessarily been on my own. I have a lot of friends, Gypsy Witch being one of them, that's always here for me, and Elizabeth Brawley. I mean, I could name them all. I mean, it'd take half the show. There's a whole lot of people that have been here through my healing journey. Donna Shear. I mean, so many people. Oh my God! I mean, all my friends that you all know who you are if you're listening. That are here for me, and I know that if I need help, if I need something, that they would be here for me. I'd have to make a phone call, and they would be here for me. So I have some really, really awesome friends who I would consider really my family now, right? Who are supporting me through this. So I'm not necessarily on my own. And not only that, but I have my sweetheart in my life who is, he's here for me. He doesn't intervene. He doesn't interfere in my process. But he's here for me. So I mean, it's great. So I'm not really on my own. But the thing is, I'm not having any professional help to do this self-help, right? I'm just doing it on my own. So you have to be very careful when you start something like this, and make sure that you know the outcome and that you know how you're going to handle this stuff when you have to deal with it, because it is quite shocking and quite, it can be quite hard to take a look at this stuff that we had to suffer as children when you're actually doing this inner child grief work. This is very serious stuff, and you don't want to take it lightly. I'm having right now dealing with some memories and stuff like that I'm really trying to get a good, clear look at from the sexual abuse that I suffered, and I'm allowing myself to see it. Whereas for a long time I didn't want to see it. I only saw bits and pieces of it, parts of it. But now I'm actually, because that my inner child is actually, I'm kind of learning how to get in touch with her. The little person that I was who was sexually abused. I'm actually allowing myself to see her, and she's still tied up. She's still bound in misery. I haven't gotten a hold of her. I haven't shown her that it's okay. And so that's what I'm working on right now. But see, a lot of people, you have to be very, very careful when you start doing something like this to know whether you can actually do it or not, and whether you will be safe enough to do it on your own. Make sure, if you don't think that you would be, then but you would have to be 100% sure, or 150% sure, that you're going to be okay through the process. Otherwise, I wouldn't attempt it on my own, because it's very hard to deal with this stuff, right? And it's very, for a lot of people, very, very disturbing, because the memories can feel like yesterday, and what we're getting a hold of as far as looking in at some of these stuff that happened to our children, our little selves, who we were so long ago, and who we still are, is like a shocker, to go back and take a look at that stuff. I mean, I've been having flashbacks about the beatings that I took from my mother for so long that it doesn't actually bother me. I mean, it's been so long, it's been happening for so long that it doesn't affect me like it used to. But I mean, I used to have flashbacks, for instance, in high school. I'd be sitting in class having flashbacks of the abuse that my mother put on me, and I couldn't concentrate on my work. I couldn't concentrate on anything, and really all I was doing was looking for after school a bottle of alcohol or something to numb myself, some form of substance abuse to get a hold of, so that I could calm down and relax, because those memories were still pretty fresh. Like some of the beatings I took were right into high school, and so, but I would have flashbacks of my little child, 5, 6, 7 years old, being mistreated and beaten and harmed, and the blood, it stays with you, I mean, unless you're just in denial, which I never was in denial, right? And so I've been dealing with this my whole life, right? So that's the whole issue, and I've obviously had a very hard time with, because I wanted to kill myself for years. So it's not something to take lightly, and you want to be sure that you're safe enough to do this stuff, and make sure that you have the proper things in your life set up so that you have these safety mechanisms that that if you're going to do this type of work, you are 100% safe to do it, and you have backup plans and contingency plans just in case you're not. It's so important, absolutely so important. So he says, doing the healing work, making recovery a way of life, allows us to make choices to define our reality from a place of faith and acceptance instead of victimization, fear, and shame. It allows us to start having healthier relationships with ourselves and with others. So doing the healing work, making recovery a way of life, right? Not just saying, oh, I'm in recovery, or I'm recovering, from childhood abuse. It should take me 2 weeks and 15 seconds. I mean, recovery really is a way of life, right, for us, for survivors who have been, and I mean, everybody's been hurt. I mean, there isn't one person on this planet that hasn't been hurt by something or someone. You can't escape it, right? I mean, there's lots of people thinking that everybody else have this wonderful life, and that, oh, they must have this wonderful life. They've never probably ever been hurt in their whole entire lifetime. That's just not true. That's a false belief. Everybody's been had something happen to them that caused them to feel shame or guilt or lesser than, or we've all been there. Emotional grief and emotional pain. Not everybody's maybe been sexually abused, and not everybody's maybe have been physically abused or assaulted, especially by a parent. But the thing is, all of us have experienced emotional grief, right? And so, by doing the healing work, making recovery a way of life, it allows us to make choices to define our reality from a place of faith and acceptance. So accepting myself, accepting the wounded parts of myself, accepting the good parts of myself, accepting the parts that nobody else could accept in my family or in my life growing up. I was rejected as a child, so then I have to learn how to accept myself. It's like, wow, I'm not this rejected little heathen child, that deserves this punishment that I'm taking, and I'm not this little girl who deserved to feel like a woman at the age of 8 years old. There's these parts of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, I have to learn how to accept all of it. And then, making our choices, right, to define our reality from a place of faith and acceptance instead of victimization, fear, and shame. So this is where the transformation, and this is what I'm working on. So he says it allows us to start having healthier relationships with ourselves and with others. And it certainly has. Like, I feel so much better today than I ever have. And, and I think it's just because I've actually gotten in touch with a lot of stuff I needed to get in touch with. And I'm working through the process of feeling it and seeing it and looking at it and then changing the way I feel about it and then holding myself and saying, you know what, it's okay. It's okay. We are okay. We are fine. What happened to us was not okay. We did not deserve that. See, I can't condone abuse, and I never will. But the thing is, so what happened to me was not okay. It was not okay for my brother to sexually use me. I want to just say rape. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, it was not okay for him to do that. It was not okay for my mother to beat on me or hurt me or spit on me or throw me out of the house and call me names and curse me. It was not okay. And it was not okay that my dad hurt me. You know what I mean? They beat on me and made me feel bad about myself and made me feel evil. And I don't know if there was some sexual abuse in there from him too, because I hated when he touched me. I just hated when my dad touched me. And I mean, both of my parents had hurt me so incredibly bad. And I hated what they did was wrong. So, I acknowledge that. That's fine, and I accept that. What they did was wrong. But what they did again, then I have to say to my little parts of myself that were so abused and wounded, I have to tell them, but it's okay now because they're not here, and they can't ever hurt me again. That's the whole, excuse me, that's the whole changing the way that we feel about things, right? Those little parts of me, those little pieces of me from so long ago still feel very unsafe, and they don't trust me as the adult because I ignored them. I didn't deny them. I wasn't in denial, but I ignored them for a long time and put them on the back burner and didn't try to get in touch with them and didn't try to be good to them and to nurture them and to give them that nurturing that they needed, because I'm the only one that can do that. And so this is really, excuse me, quite interesting, this stuff. So we got about a minute left, so I guess we'll have to pick up here tomorrow and where we left off here. But we'll pick it back up. And if you have a hard time coping and you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do it, and I just can't seem to get over this, and I just don't know what I'm going to do. You make sure that you reach out to somebody. Everybody's different. We all need different things. I really like group support, online group support. It was very much anonymous and very much, you can go on when you feel like it, and it was very safe for me, safe place, because it was a group support, and I could just choose to leave it, or I could go and be a part of it when I wanted to, and so there was whole safety in numbers thing, right? So I really liked that. That was really good for me. And so, but everybody's different, and some people like the idea of having a counselor or therapist. But whatever you do, if you can't cope, you call a crisis line, and you make sure that you stick around for tomorrow, because there won't be any better days if you don't stick around, right? That's the issue. 2 of my brothers killed themselves, and there would never be any good days for them because they didn't stick around. They lived and died in horror and misery. And a lot of it was, as an adult, of course, self-inflicted. But as a child, what they went through was horrific. So, we won't see better days if we don't look for them. And if we're not here to look for them, then obviously we're not going to see them. So stick around, make the right choice for yourself, and reach out. If you're having a hard time, you call a crisis line, right? So thanks, everybody, for being here. And Gypsy Witch, I just love you. And have a great night. And have a good day, everybody. We'll talk to you later on. I'll be on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio tonight, here on Blog Talk Radio at blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. And you can catch that show. I love to do those shows, so I hope that you will tune in. Have a great night. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.